I'm Brent Graham, and you're on Good for the Game TV. World Cup fever is building, and yes, on tonight's show, we are going to be talking World Cup. We're going to be looking at the Northern Hemisphere sides tonight. What sort of chances do they have? We'll get a panel's opinion on that. We did try and get a Northern Hemisphere guest. Unfortunately, weren't able to secure at short notice. But coming into the World Cup, we'll definitely get a few Northern Hemisphere guests as well. So we'll discuss the chances of the Six Nations sides. And also just have a quick last look at the box squad, not in any sort of detail because there was no real surprises, let's face it, but we'll discuss that with the panel as well. Well, before you do anything else, if you are new to the show and you want to be notified of all of our previews, particularly our rugby ones, then go down below this video and hit the subscribe button. Time now to introduce you to the panel, though. And let me start it in the middle of my screen. I'm guessing he's in the middle of everyone's screen. And that is Couch Critic Hindemont. Couch, good to have you on the show.
How's it, Brent? Thanks, man. Yeah, good to be here and good to get back to rugby after I'm still stuck in Ashes mode and loving every minute of the result. It couldn't have happened to a nicer team.
That's it. And it's good to welcome the Judge back. I'm really missing him on Twitter, and he's still having no joy with that. Judge, we were just talking about Ashes cricket. That was a stunning finish. I wonder if we're going to get such drama in the World Cup.
Yeah, it's good to be back and after a week's break. That innings yesterday from Ben Stokes was remarkable. Like, it really probably one of the best innings out, and to go so long with one wicket in hand and still go on and win it is quite special. There's a lot of drama in it, but hopefully not too much. I wouldn't mind a player-related drama in the World Cup. I don't want any umpire-related or referee-related drama, please. Thank you. Other than that, the guys must dazzle, man.
Excellent. Yeah, we can't wait for the World Cup to begin. Let's quickly talk first about the South African squad today. I was actually waiting for the squad announcement because I thought if Rassie pulls a few out the bag here and really shocks us, then, maybe we make the show about the World Cup announcement. But at the end of the day, I think we've analysed this World Cup squad in quite a lot of detail. And Elstad in the end was the guy to drop out. There was no one new coming in. What did you make of the announcement today?
Yeah, listen, if we feel like someone's missed out, they haven't missed out to a player that's like horribly worse off than they are. It's been pretty tight calls. I thought the only place was maybe Warwick Gelant. I thought that second 15 spot or that second spot to cover that 15 position was a little bit less secure for him. Maybe late, maybe another winger might have got a look in and Colby would have covered. I don't know, but in light of what's happened with Deante, the fact that he's out the mix at the moment, obviously he hasn't played as well. So, that kind of made the decision easier. And I think the injury to Marcel Coetzee made the Kwagga Smith selection a no-brainer. You just bring in another, there was some of the locks can play on the blind side. So that kind of ruled Elstad out. But other than that, no surprises. And after two World Cup selections of tripe and surprises and cuck and whatever, we've actually got a pretty decent one and everyone knows where they stand.
Yeah, I think that's something that Rassie's done very well, Couch. He has let everyone know where he stands. He's been pretty honest in interviews. He's let people exactly know. And I was kind of expecting him to go this route, and I did think Elstad would probably go, although I felt Gelant perhaps a little bit fortunate. But there was always that chance he was going to throw something in. What were you hoping for? Something like a Damian Willemse to sneak in? I saw he was getting a lot of support after this weekend's games.
No, Brent, just how refreshing, having a coach who just says what he means, and there was no hidden agendas, and everyone on Twitter and wherever you wanted to look in the newspapers were trying to nitpick at this group and think about something he could do. And Rassie was straightforward, and we always knew it was going to be between Kwagga and Elstad for that position. It was just the case of who he felt gave better balance. He wouldn't have left the extra back out. He told us about the 3 scrum halves, so we kind of knew all that. He said before, and he was going to go for the 4 locks, which was, to me, it was a little bit of an easier out for him to leave a Luit or someone, but he didn't want to go that way. And then quite importantly, I think in the interview, he said Elstad was brought in as a Kulisi cover. So, he basically clarified how he saw Elstad, and that was why he played 6 in that opening game. And he saw Elstad as a guy who's going to be 6 and then possibly cover 7. And I think that was where the big difference was, where Kwagga is a little bit more versatile than Elstad in that role. And he thought, as we've said, that he's got a little bit of cover on 7 by moving one of his locks. So he was pretty happy. As Judge said, he probably rather wanted a 6/8 then, and which is Kwagga, which would have been a Marcel Coetzee as the direct opposition to Kwagga. So no surprises at all for me. And as I said, it's just refreshing, really. Gone are the Peter de Villiers days and that kind of thing where you got to worry about what's up in the air and what's hidden behind smoke screens and stuff. Rassi's dead serious and dead honest, and it's refreshing and great. And he's long ago nailed his colours to the mast and said, "Judge me on this, and if we fail, we fail." So there's going to be no excuses for him, and he's not asking for any excuses, and he's done a great job already just by the belief and what everyone feels about this team and where we are at the moment. So it's time to get on board and get on the plane.
I see. Just welcome, first of all, to all the guys in the live chat. Andre, Nicho, Johann Loubser joining us. Quite a bit of sentiment couch for Leitz, feeling he was a bit unlucky. I tend to agree with that, because having said that, I thought Galant, might be the fortunate one to be going there. And I didn't think Leitz did anything wrong in his appearance at Loftus.
I blame Judge Rugby there. If he didn't fall off Twitter, our campaign might have worked. I think we were just about knocking on the door there, and unfortunately, just before it got loud enough, Judge with all his fans slipped off the face of the earth. So it's all behind or in front of his door. It's all Sean's fault.
Excellent. Sean, anything else to add before we move on to the Northern Hemisphere teams?
But I'm with you on that. I thought we pushed really hard to get Leitz in the mix, and I think he deserved a bit of a shot at 15. I think maybe that's why he didn't get a look in. I do want to say something about Gelant. Like, there's no doubt about the fact that he's talented and he's good, and he just takes a lot longer to get going. So he hasn't got to his best yet, and it's a bit difficult picking a guy in the hope of what we're going to get, in the hope of what we will get, which is kind of what we're doing with both our fullbacks at the moment. They both have got what it takes, and I'm happy to have Gelant there. It was the one and only place that was maybe debatable, and it's not that he doesn't deserve to be there, which is the first time we can say that in 2 World Cups, where we got guys that, you legit would happy to have them on the bench or start, no matter who you pick of that 31 against any team. So, yeah, I'm happy.
Excellent. Yeah, I think Rassi said it well. He said there were 4 or 5 guys who were unlucky not to make it. But it's not as if anyone was really unlucky, to be honest. There's no one there who can honestly say they would have walked into the team. So I think a nice selection. But let's get on to the Northern Hemisphere sides. And Judge, I'll start with you. I'm going to give Italy a skip, because I think we can probably all agree that Italy can't win the World Cup. I think they're only 23-point favourites to beat Namibia in their opener. So let's talk about some of the other teams. Starting perhaps with Scotland. Now, Scotland were beaten away at France last week in the World Cup prep, and we've got to be careful what we read into these games. I then fancied them to bounce back strongly last week against France, and they did beat the French, but gee whiz, they made hard work of it. In the end, just winning by 3 points. Where do you think Scotland are now as far as the World Cup goes? Do you give them a chance, or where do you see them exiting?
I think Scotland are probably, if they make the quarterfinals, are gonna go away there. I think the Scotland of 2 years ago that was absolutely like scaring the crap out of the other teams in the Six Nations seems to have fallen away a bit. They have had quite a few injuries. They've lost a couple of guys, and they're starting to make their way back. Like Vierpernel had a really good game this weekend. He's just come back from quite a long-term injury. I know Hugh Jones was back the week before. So they've got a couple of options there. Hamish Watson was incredible. I think their loose trio, like they've got some good balance there with their locks and their loosies, and it's just a bit of how we're going to see them work as together, sort of with the pack and what sort of dominance they can get. Very happy with them at 9 and pretty decent 10. They've got their centers are okay. And obviously they got Hogg at the back, who's very handy. Just on Italy, I think like we might write them off, but Michele Campagnaro, I just hope we see more of him at 13. I'm such a fan of him. He's done his rounds in England a little bit and played through there. He had a good game a couple of weeks ago. And then the other winger, I forget his name now. I'm just trying to. I've lost it. I can't think of his name. The winger Morossi, I'm not sure, but he's pretty handy. But yeah, in terms of Scotland, I'll be honest with you. Anything can happen in a game, but speaking now, I wouldn't threaten the Springboks in any way, shape, or form, no matter what game of the tournament. So I think quarterfinals and they're out.
Right, well, welcome to Shane in the live chat. Someone asking if he's Shane Shaw. Nicho asking Shane Shaw from the horse racing game, but it's not him. And just to say, Shane, yeah, well, welcome to the show. He said he's made 2 bad trades of the US Open tennis, so he's here to take his mind off it. So hopefully we can take your mind off that. Couch, let's bring you in there on the Scots. I was really, a year ago, if you'd asked me about Scotland, I really did give them not a chance of winning, but I thought they could play a big role. I think they could cause a quarterfinal upset or something like that. I was having some WhatsApps with a good mate of ours, Southpaw, based in the UK now. I mean, he was saying he actually fancies Scotland to exit in the group stages. He thinks Japan can get them.
Yeah, I think they might have an outside chance there. As you say, the big thing for Scotland was they developed that backline play of theirs a lot. They played a good, attractive brand. Laidlaw, you can't teach him anything solid, doesn't miss a kick. Finn Russell, great, creative. Like how he gets the backline going. Good when they've got Stuart Hugh Jones at the back or in the centres. Sean Maitland is steady. Seymour on the wing and Hogg at the back. I mean, that's a decent backline and. They can rip you to shreds. They've shown it in the Six Nations. As soon as you keep your eye off them, they can hit you and they can hit you hard. So they're not to be taken lightly. But I just think talking about light, actually, it's in the forwards to me where they've got a little bit of a difference. To your Irelands and to your Englands and to your France for that matter. I don't think they've quite got the roll up your sleeves and get stuck in kind of forwards. Even Amish is seen. I'm seeing people touting him. Does a lot of ball carrying, does some stealing, puts in a lot of tackles. But, it's just not as physical a presence as some of the other guys who do that. You compare him to a Dwayne Vermeulen who does that and he isn't physically that kind of guy, even a CJ Stander. So to me, that's where Scotland just kind of missed the boat a little bit. They're just not quite physical enough and that's where they come up short. So for me, I'm probably with South. I'd love to see Japan throw a spanner in the works. I just think, again, with your kind of experience and knockout rugby kind of thing, Six Nations, they play tough opposition quite often in the year, and then obviously the year-end tours or the incoming and outgoing tours. So it's a lot of experience that Scotland take into a World Cup, which Japan is only starting to get that kind of show and that kind of scene. So I think Scotland will probably just use the experience and eventually wrestle their way through that one. So it's going to be tough, but yes, I think. Pretty much quarterfinals is where Scotland is going to end. I haven't actually looked, where they'll probably meet us. So that should be a good night nurse.
So when you say they'll probably meet us, then you're assuming that we're going to beat the All Blacks.
No, because they meet us.
They'll beat the All Blacks. I think they'll meet assuming whoever wins the South Africa All Black game will meet second in the Scottish group.
No, yeah, it's Scotland. No, Scotland, New Zealand. Yeah. My bad. No, Scotland, New Zealand. That's what I mean. Checking. Scotland, New Zealand. I'm not backing us in that opener.
Excellent. Well, let's move on. Sean, unless you've got anything else to add to the Scots, I think we all pretty much agreed that they're going to battle a bit. Let's move on to France, because France have shown something in these opening warm-up games. I was certainly very impressed with them in the home game against Scotland. I didn't actually get to watch a lot of rugby this weekend, unfortunately. What do you make of the French chances? We know that they've got that ability to pop up in World Cups, but they've been written off by the bookmakers 35-1.
Yeah, so the French side, I don't know, like it's such a cliche. Like you really don't know what's happening. And, the minute they start gaining momentum, they lose it. And then like 14 coaches leave and 500 captains. And then they move their captain to flank and cuck like that. Like, so you don't quite know what's going on with them. They took a loss this weekend. They had a great win the week before. Decent little momentum-ish. They faced Italy before the World Cup. I tell you one thing though, their midfield, they seem to have sorted their midfield out well. I thought, so his name escapes me. He played this weekend in the centres. He played really well as a Toulouse backline player, really handy. I think for me on the wing, I think they're missing a guy like Teddy Thomas. I'm a massive fan. He's got such unbelievable balance and he runs really well. Raka on the other wing is very, very handy. So. Like the guys are doing well. To be fair, they do have Penno, who's also in incredible form. So, like back line wise, they're pretty handy. Like they've just got to keep their head together and sort it out. Lopez is a bit funny for me. At 10, he's a little erratic at stages, and I think they just need to sort out what's happening at 10. And I think everyone else will fall in around him. He just needs to gain a bit of form. Up front, they're looking pretty handy. They've got options all of a sudden, and all the sides seem to have options. England, France, Wales. The guys seem to have a few options at the moment, and I think, France are still waiting for Bernard Leroux to serve his suspension and come back. He is in camp, so he is there to offer and help. They may be struggling at 5. They've only got Vahamahina at the moment. Other than that, they're looking a little bit thin. But, they're really looking good. They've got great options at the back. 8 is sorted and covered for them. Their loose trio is really looking good. So it's just whether they come together in a World Cup, and they seem to always come together in a World Cup. So I think they might cause 1 or 2 upsets in the knockouts.
Right, and talking about in the knockouts, of course, they are going to play England. So if they beat England, that would be an upset. But the game against Argentina, in most people's eyes, is shaping up as a virtual eliminator in that group. Do you see them beating Argentina and moving through to the quarters?
It's such a difficult one to call. On current form with Argentina, I'd say no. And on current form with the French side, I'd say no as well, because I don't quite know what's happening. These are 2 very, very passionate sides. And it's a World Cup. It's the be all and end all, and they're playing against the enemy. There's so many Argentinians playing in France, and there's a big rivalry there, and it's going to be an absolutely incredible game. And I have no doubt about it that there's going to be a yellow card, maybe a red card or 2. I think it's going to be pretty heavy.
Couch, let's move to you and get your opinion on the French team. You know my opinion on France. I love them. I've backed them in the 2011 World Cup, and they just let me down there. They are capable on their day. As Sean says, it's a bit of a cliche, but if the French turn up. But I've got a feeling we're going to be looking at a much more consistent French team than what we're used to.
Yeah, Brent, I think they're going to take a lot of confidence out of that first performance. I don't think the second one meant quite as much to them. They made their point in the opener, and I actually think they did a pretty good job in that second game in Scotland against Scotland. So that wasn't a bad result for them. They didn't play badly there. But to me, I love the Fico Fofana midfield. That to me is a dangerous one. I really look forward to seeing that in operation. And then Pinot, I was seriously impressed. I didn't know much about the Oak, and he's put into 2 great performances. I really, to me, he's a shining light, and I think he could rack up quite a lot of tries. So I'm actually having a good look at him. Obviously, Gerardo, to me, I love him. He's probably right up there as one of the best hookers in the world. So I think they lead from the front there in terms of having someone solid in the pack, and there are no questions about it. And I think he leads them quite well. They unify around him at the back there. It's almost like Creevy, I think. And so they're good. And then, as I said, to me, the big difference with France is in the forwards. And as Sean said as well, they've got a pretty good loose trio combination, which is always a good thing. And then Vahamahina is good. I like him as a number 5, as you say, very, very active. And then great backup forwards. I think no one's gonna bully that French pack. That's the big thing. If they're up for it on the day, you're gonna have a pretty tough day about it. So I think that, to me, and looking at the draw, they got a tough match against Argentina. But if they get through that, they're pretty much going to fancy themselves against the Welsh side, I think, in the quarterfinals, if I'm not missing it. Yeah, a quarterfinal against Wales, maybe, even if they're lucky against Australia. So they could be the surprise entry into a semi-final there. I wouldn't be completely surprised, if they manage to get their way. As we said with France, the big thing is stringing those results together. Now they've got to put in a decent game against England, put in a decent game against Argentina, then put in another one against Wales. Are they really going to be able to put all those games together week in and week out to be able to get themselves to a final? So that's obviously going to be the big question for me around France. So we're going to have to wait and see about that. But I think they've got the personnel this year to take them far, and they've probably had that most of the time. And it's just about them mentally, pitching up and being able to do the job. But I've been pretty impressed by them. So I'm looking forward to seeing them. Especially, as I said, I thought Argentina were going to take them in that opener, but it's not going to happen. I think they'll have the measure of Argentina.
Excellent. Well, Shane in the live chat saying that Andre is also in the live chat, looks exactly like his twin brother. So not too sure what to read into that one. But I'm very much with you guys as far as France go. They can definitely cause an upset. I would be surprised, though, if they go all the way. Let's move on to Ireland. And Couch, I'll stay with you on the Irish. I mean, I know you're a betting man, and I've just thought I'd put this up because it wasn't probably, it wasn't a year ago, it was November of last year, that Ireland had firmed in with the bookmakers to 33-10, second favourites behind New Zealand. And I remember tweeting, I actually looked for the tweet and I couldn't find it. I remember tweeting and saying, if you had a spare 100,000 to bet on the Rugby World Cup, what would you put it on? And I was adamant, I would have taken it on Ireland at 33-10. At that stage, I couldn't look past a really strong Irish performance in the World Cup. Now, a below par Six Nations campaign, and definitely some below par, warm-up games. Yeah, they weren't very impressive against Italy and blown away. I didn't get to see the game against England. What do you make of the Irish? Can they still come back and mount a World Cup challenge? They're now 10-1.
Brent, I was going to ask you the other day whether that Irish jersey that you ordered, obviously a few months ago, whether it arrived already, because you were very bullish, but it seems like you've never taken it out of the package yet. So it seems that it might stay under the bed there, and I'd say trade it for someone else. I told you, I think about 9 months ago, that listen, they peaked too early, and that to me is the issue of Ireland there. I mean, this weekend they didn't have a bad team that they rolled out. I mean, Tad Furlong and those kind of guys were there, and it was a pretty disappointing performance. I know the warm-ups don't matter much, and we'll always say it's just the head out about getting some time on the park and all that, but you don't want to really go and take a hiding. That's kind of like the one team talk that the coach has out there is, listen, go and have a run, get a few hits in, but don't get 50 past you. And they kind of missed the script there. So that's it was a little bit disappointing for them. And I think the big thing that has come out of this, regardless of whether you think they can go all the way or not, is just exactly how important that 9-10 combo is for them. Conor Murray and Johnny Sexton, that's where they win or lose games. So to me, that's a little bit too weighted. That's just too important for them. And I don't know. I think they're going to struggle somehow. Everyone knows you got to target Johnny Sexton. You got to get up in his face. You got to hit him hard a few times. Got to hit a Dwayne Vermeulen's shoulder in there. So it's going to be tough for them when he gets mauled about a bit. Obviously, I know Joe Schmidt isn't to be taken lightly. He's a clever bloke. But I think he's going to have his handfuls trying to pull a few strings and getting this team all the way. If I look through it, obviously Rory Best, is it the World Cup too far? I'm not sure. He's got good experience, proper front row. That Ian Henderson, this is a proper tight five. CJ Stander again, he's another guy. I think he's just not quite in the same form that he was a year ago. So they need CJ to be up there and playing at his absolute best. And then obviously we said that back line. I mean, it's not a back line, not a bad back line, and it's around Sexton. I mean, name wise, it's still the same Irish team. It's still a good team. I think they've run out of a bit of steam, eh?
Right, and you don't see them picking it back up before the World Cup. I mean, you talk about peaking early. I was just checking. Southpaw sent me a WhatsApp that he does expect Ireland to come back. But I think it's kind of what you said. I wouldn't have minded if Ireland had lost this game by 15 or 20 points against England. But to get a hiding the way they did it, it is going to be tough to come back from that. So you're prepared to write them off as World Cup winners, Couch?
No, listen. I mean, the big thing you got to say about Ireland is, as you know, they're going to have time to get into some momentum because they only play Scotland. Apart from that, it should be a walk in the park for them. They're not going to lose against Japan. They're not going to lose against Samoa or Russia. So and at the same time, Samoa and Japan, they're still going to be able to test themselves. It's not that easy. Run over them, run your drills. It's kind of you got to be focused on the job, and it's going to be a pretty good test. So I mean, it's only Scotland there, but I think they know exactly how to handle Scotland. There are going to be no surprises there for them. So I don't see them struggling to win the group. So I mean, that gives them three games to win the World Cup. That to me puts them in a decent position, and it all depends on what you think of South Africa. But I think they're probably cheering hard for the Boks to win that opener because I don't think they want the All Blacks in the quarters. No,
certainly not. Sean, let's go over to you on the Irish. Their fall from grace has been quite dramatic, and I guess the question is it a temporary thing, or are they really going to be bit players now in the World Cup, probably going out in the quarters?
Yeah, it seems like they're a year late on the mix, but there's one thing that they are taking the same squad. We all know which squad they're going to take, so the guys will click eventually. Are they going to be clicking towards soon enough towards the end of the World Cup? It's a bit confusing, but if they start gelling sort of just before the quarters, then then everything will be okay. Then, it'll be easy for them to tap back into where they were when they Grand Slammed and stuff like that 2 years ago. So that's not a problem. My thing for when looking at Ireland, I think they have molded too much around Johnny Sexton and haven't provided enough guys with cover to cover the 10 position. And the other thing is, even if Sexton is fit, he sometimes gets rattled. So if him and Murray don't work together properly, and Murray's been carrying quite a heavy load lately, I think if Sexton gets rattled, then his game goes, and then they don't have anyone else to really fall back on. I think that's a big concern. Very handy in the midfield. They've got Bundy Aki, Ringrose and Henshaw. Keith Earls can shift in there. So they're looking pretty good. They're deadly guys at the back, whether they've got Lama playing at fullback or Kearney, it doesn't really matter. So they're looking pretty good in the backs. Their loose chairs are pretty good. I think the injuries have hurt them a little bit. I think Josh van der Fleer is going to be an integral part of their World Cup, and he's a great player, and he's going to have to carry a massive workload. In terms of knockouts, listen. When the Six Nations sides play each other, I'm quite happy. They play their own style of rugby, but when the Southern Hemisphere sides play their knockout rugby, they do play a little bit differently. The Northern Hemisphere sides do lock down into proper test rugby, and they do really go for the points and stuff. Where we're a little bit more give it a bit more width and a little bit more zing. So I think probably in a quarterfinal that'll favor quarterfinal and semi-final will favor the running sides a little bit better at that time. But Ireland are really good at building a good 12-15 point lead before you turn your back, So it's important that we take control there. I think semi-finals they might make an exit again.
Right. It's interesting that when people talk about Ireland and they talk about the quarterfinal, most of us, I think, are sort of still building into our thinking that we'll lose to New Zealand in that opener. I guess a lot will change depending on what happens there. Couch, you in that, I mean, we spoke about it earlier in the show. You do think that the All Blacks are probably going to beat us. So you do see South Africa against Ireland in the quarters.
Yeah, Brent, I'm putting down a few, to play each other in the final kind of bets, and I'm telling you, I'm basing all of them on the Boks losing that opener. So it's I've got a few interesting combinations, but they're all not involving the Boks winning that first one and throwing everything Demakar there. Eh?
Right. Well, let's go to Wales now. Now I'm going to start off with Judge. And now Wales are the number one side in the world. They're pretty much fourth favourites with the bookmakers at 9-1 to win. Their price has been fairly stable. We know what we get from the Welsh, a really tight defence. One of our regulars on our website and a guy whose opinion we respect a lot was saying that he thinks the problem with Wales is they don't score enough tries. And I think you kind of touched on it when you were talking about Ireland as well. He thinks the Southern Hemisphere sides are going to be better positioned to score the tries. And unless Wales find a way to score, they're not going to be able to get through the really big games.
I think Wales and England are the two best try-scoring nations in the Six Nations at the moment, like going into the World Cup now. Obviously, France are up there too. But yeah, I think they're pretty set and solid in the back line, and they're pretty comfortable up front. But they also are one injury away in maybe two key positions that could really sink them. So if they can keep it together and keep going, it should be good. I do think that they will score more tries this World Cup. I think they're starting to get the feel of that, of spreading it through their hands. They've got incredible guys at 10, 12, and 13 that love to distribute, and they've got wingers that like to finish, and the back three likes to finish. So I think we might see some more tries from them. I think North's gaining a little bit of form again. I think we'll see how he does a little bit later on. I just think that we might see a little bit more from them. And obviously them going into the World Cup ranked number one is quite something, but they also want to prove to everyone that they deserve it.
Stephen just making the comment there that it's too early to write the Irish off, and the Wales game is going to tell us a lot, and tend to agree with you there. Also, welcome to Fat Exorcist. We know him. He's our Blues fan from New Zealand who's popped in probably while he's having his fried eggs there in New Zealand at the moment. And it is going to be very interesting to see. Southpaw was telling me in the WhatsApp that he does fancy New Zealand still to win it, and they'll have a lot of support. But Couch, the Welsh at 9-1, will that be tempting you into backing them, or are you of the opinion as well that they can't go all the way?
Brent, when did you ever see a world number one come in at something like 9-1? I think you could probably get them 10-1 if you really look around. Or I saw them 10-1 a while back. It's incredible, you know. I think they almost like the Jaguares or the Argentina of a while back, where no one's rating them, and I think they could be lurkers there. You know, I don't see them having a problem with that opener or their opener. I see them. Well, I actually don't know if it is the opener. Whenever they play Australia, I see them beating Australia. I see to me they're a better team at a knockout kind of game, and they shouldn't have problems with Australia. They'll beat them up front, and I think they've now, as Sean said, they pretty much got it going at the back there as well. I don't really buy into the whole try thing. I mean, who are you going to rack up loads of tries against? Australia and France, they're probably going to be playing. That's going to suit them perfectly. I think, as I said, I think they're better than Australia. They've played France. They'll beat France 9 times out of 10, so they'll fancy themselves to beat France in the quarterfinals. And I mean, then you're in the semis. So from then on, it's anyone's game. And if it works out for them, you know, they could be playing the Boks in the semi-final again. Tough nut, but I mean, if you got a choice between England and New Zealand and the Boks, you'd probably take South Africa. So to me, you know, Wales are a dark horse. I'm starting to warm to them. George North, Gareth Davis, those kind of guys at the back. I think George North is going to score heaps of tries if he plays, and if he plays against Uruguay, we might have to pen him in for 5. So things. I'm pretty positive on Wales. Yeah, I think people are overlooking them, and I think they're going to put up a heck of a fight. I mean, no one knows how to win like they do the last. I don't know, what is it, Sean? Probably 18 months that they've got that record going, or had the record going. So, you know, no one knows how to capitalize and secure a victory. Everyone's saying that they don't deserve world number one because they haven't beaten the All Blacks. I mean, that's one game. Don't worry, they won't have to beat the All Blacks to win the World Cup. So let's just stick to Wales being a real runner. Yeah.
I don't think our fat exorcist is gonna agree with you on that one. Just something I want to touch on before we move on to England, Sean, is goal kicking. Obviously, Wales. I'm not too sure how their settled squad is looking, but you've got the likes of a Lee Halfpenny there, who's very accurate with kicking. We've got England, who've got Farrell. I mean, how big a role is goal kicking going to play in this World Cup? Because I'm of the opinion it's going to be massively important.
Huge. Like, the game might be 35-34, or there might be 10 tries apiece, but it's settled by a penalty, you know. So it matters, and it always matters when you miss it. So it's always been important. It's always been a key thing in Test rugby. It's going to cost us if we don't do it. It's a big thing, and it's guaranteed points. That the Northern Hemisphere sides bank on it. They really do, and the Kiwis do too. Even though they've been mucking around a little bit with Barrett and what's going on and trying to sort him out, but they always take their points, and they know how to build the pressure. You know, they'll score 10 tries in a game, but they'll probably have like a 9-point lead to start off, to put you under pressure to make the errors. So it's going to be key. So yeah, we need to be on point.
That's it. Yeah, the kicking is going to be interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see how the New Zealand kickers go. I see Fat Exorcist. It hasn't popped up on this. There we go. It's just popped up now, saying that he doesn't think Barrett will be New Zealand's kicker, and if he is, he'll back the Boks. So that's going to be an interesting one. And I do get the feeling that Hansen has been obviously trying to work Barrett into the team without having to rely on him as a kicker. But I've still got a feeling at the end of the day he's going to be relying on Barrett as a kicker there. But let's move on now to England. And Couch, I'll start with you. The English, of course, have put in some good performances. Certainly, I didn't see the game, but the crushing win over Ireland on the weekend. But they've been hovering around fairly stable. I think at one stage, they also had their 2018 season wasn't particularly good. And there was a lot of talks that Eddie Jones sort of ran his race, and they drifted in the betting to about 8-1. They're now into 9-2, joint second favourites with the Springboks. And we've already seen Johann Loubser on the show say, pile into the English. He managed to get 7-1 from Gary Lenton, as you know, on our Thursday night show. What do you think of the English chances? Are they going to win the World Cup for the Northern Hemisphere?
Brent, just quickly, the last thing, the interesting thing about your kicking philosophy is that I'm pretty sure your Northern Hemisphere kickers are almost ahead of all your Southern Hemisphere kickers. I mean, not only Barrett, I pretty much see the Aussies, they'll struggle having a high kick percentage, and we know even Pollard, on his day, he's almost like a Rory McIlroy. When he's on a run, he's great, but he can miss a few probably not that difficult kicks. So in that case, your Northern Hemisphere theory is a pretty good one. On to England, I'm a huge fan, Brent. England, to me, they've pretty much got all the boxes ticked. I think usually, in any year, no team leaves no stone unturned like the English do in terms of their preparation. They usually got it spot on. They've usually meticulously planned everything into how they're going to go into a World Cup. So you can pretty much know that they're going to be cherry ripe for this one and pretty much ready to dominate from the first go. And I think that's what we saw this week. This is an England team that's already sharp. They're already ready and they already know the squad. They're starting to fire on all cylinders. And I think, that's just the way, almost in a Jake White kind of way. And Eddie Jones has been involved in some World Cups. He knows what it takes. He knows the kind of planning and the technical aspects behind it. And I think he's got that machine turning now and they're fully in World Cup mode. And that's a dangerous place, when those English are in that frame of mind and everything's that process towards going to win the World Cup. And I think the machine is churning and it's danger signs. I'm pretty confident. I've got good money in them and I'm pretty confident that they're going to give me a good run for my money. And if I just quickly look at the team, I mean, he brought back Joe Marler basically on personal assistance there. He just said he wants him. Jamie George, solid there as a hooker. Mario Torgi, he's coming on. He's playing brilliant rugby. I mean, it's pretty much scary. The Vunipolas, everyone knows what kind of impact they can make. He's finally, I don't know, for some reason decided, which was a little bit strange, to go to the George Ford and Farrell combination. That's going to be quite interesting if he sticks with that. I quite like it as long as Tuilagi is in the system because, this week he played at 13 and you need Tuilagi hitting the line there at pace and creating havoc. I mean, he's brilliant at that. He just draws the defenses and then when they go with that quick ball out wide, it's panic station. So to me, they've got a pretty good setup going. They've got a pretty good team going and they real runners. The only concern I have about England is it's a pretty tough route for them, in the group stages. They can't slack off. They got France and Argentina. You can't afford one slip up there and falling into second to play someone else. So you've got to be strapping it from day one. And then obviously in the semi-final, they're probably going to hit New Zealand. So they're going to have to beat the big boys to win the trophy.
That's true. I'm pleased you actually raised that because as we go over to Sean for his comments on England, that's the one thing I was looking at the other day, the draw, and I was thinking it's almost also why I think that first game, South Africa-New Zealand game, is important because the winner of that game probably plays Scotland, possibly Japan in the quarterfinals. Now, there's no such thing as an easy game. If you're playing Scotland, you've got to be on top of your game to beat them. But let's face it, you'd rather face that than face an Ireland in the quarters. And if you look at England's draw, they've got a tough group. I mean, Argentina, you can't take them lightly. They're probably going to beat them, but you can't take them lightly. We know that France are going to be really tough. And then they got even their quarterfinal route looks pretty tough. Sean, do you think that's going to count against the English? And do you think they can go all the way?
It's a tough one. Like, do you want to have all the easy games and then have your boys try and gel together for like 3 hard games, or do you want to have a tough tournament and be switched on the whole time and know that you can't slip up anywhere? It's a tough one. I will
ask Jake White. He'll tell you just make it as easy as you can.
Yeah, that's also true. But looking at England, the one thing that was highlighted this weekend, and it's not because of the result, but they played well, and the result obviously matters. But the one thing that highlighted for me is they have options. They have options in their 31-man squad. So they've got guys that they can. Manu Tuilagi will start, and for me, he's their first choice 13. I think he's played so well at 13. He played so well during the Premiership at 13 when he came back. For me, he's their first choice there. Slade was the other option. He played a lot. They played really, really well. But I think, either you're going to have Slade start at 13 and Tuilagi start at 12, which will move Farrell to 10 because Farrell starts 2, or you're going to have Ford, Farrell, Tuilagi. I just think Tuilagi at 13 brings a contact point a phase or 2 wider. I don't think the guys are used to guys like him running at them all game. He's really in fine form. I think up front they're looking handy. They've got their front row. They've got guys hitting form. They've got experience. They've got youth. They've got proper scrummages. They've got ball players. Their locks are really good. Their locks all their locks have played on the side of the scrum during the Premiership at some stage, or for England some stage this season, and their loose chair is pretty handy. So the only thing that could potentially go wrong for them is their 9. They've taken 2 9s to the World Cup, one one's very green, even though Willie Hines is a very, very experienced player. And when Ben Youngs is off target like he was this weekend, unfortunately it didn't cost them, but Ben Youngs didn't have a good game. He really was by far the worst performer in an England jersey on Saturday. So, it's pretty interesting. I think they're in a really good position, and I think they might benefit from having a tight pool and tight games. I think they might work it through a little bit better than some of the other sides, and I think they're in for a semi-final, definitely.
Yeah, a semi-final most likely against probably New Zealand, but quite possibly the Springboks otherwise. Judge, do you see them winning the tournament, or do you think the semi-final is where they bow out?
So if South Africa in it, we're winning the tournament, and there's nothing really else we need to discuss. Like the fat exorcist had a chirp at me now, so that was my payback to you, my man.
I'll tell you one thing, Judge, I really can't wait for that game between South Africa and New Zealand. I think the build-up to that's going to be immense, eh?
Yeah, it's good. So I tell you, the thing is no matter who wins or loses that, the other both teams are still massively into the shot to finish the tournament and could possibly go as kind of favorites the whole way,
Yes.
So I think it's quite interesting. You guys are betting, guys. A friend of mine said to me he's looking for some odds, and I was like, I don't really know what that is, but he said to me that the opening game of South Africa and New Zealand is going to go the way of New Zealand, and New Zealand will then sort of go unbeaten until the final, and South Africa will go unbeaten until the final, and then South Africa will win the final. So he's trying to find odds on that. So if you can sort me out of that, I'll put you in contact with my mate. But he says the Boks are going to lose the opening one and win the World Cup.
Well, I can tell you that, and Couch can come in if he knows anything. I can tell you the odds of a New Zealand-South Africa final have shortened considerably. That's in now to favourite it at just over 3-1. But Couch, it would be interesting to know what price you could get on that very combination. Maybe we'll ask Gary Lenton. In fact, that's a nice bet for Gary Lenton to put together. We do a show on a Thursday night at 8:30 with one of the bookmakers, and he loves to throw all these fancy specials. He laid one of our guys who was on the show earlier 7-1 about England. We'll ask Gary to come up with a price on that one. The South Africa to lose the first game, but to beat New Zealand in the final. That'll be a very interesting one. What do you think, Couch?
To go unbeaten the whole way after that.
Yes, so basically, and do they have to beat New Zealand in the final or not necessarily, so long as they win the tournament from there?
No, it was to beat New Zealand in the final. The thing was that South Africa lose the first one, go unbeaten for the rest of the tournament. New Zealand win the first one, go unbeaten, and then lose the final.
That's a very nice one. I'll get him a price. By the time we do next week's show, we'll have a price for you on that one to give him. Couch?
You're gonna get better odds here on that specific example because obviously you can wait for the first game, wait for the Boks to lose, and then take the Boks to win the World Cup because their odds are gonna it's gonna go up from there, after losing that opener. But as you say, because you've already got New Zealand and South Africa to play in the final at about 7-2, so it's obviously gonna go up if you can still call that. You're calling a match result as well in the opener, so you should get a nice one. I actually rate something like New Zealand and Wales to play in the final. Something like that to me is a good runner. I look at the 4 semi-finalists. I see it as being Wales and the Boks and England and New Zealand. So you can look around at combinations of that and just decide what's going to work for you. And obviously you sketch the 2 short ones. So to me it's Wales and England or Wales and New Zealand probably offers the best value, but I still think probably for mine it's a tough semi-final. The only thing standing to me, the worry for England is that semi-final probably against New Zealand. To me, the winner of that game wins the World Cup.
Excellent. Well, Fat Exorcist, I put this one up because I see he's moving to Johannesburg. So we'll have to go and watch a Lions Blues game together sometime. I don't think your final England v New Zealand is that likely unless, because we'll put it this way, I don't think New Zealand can go through unbeaten and meet England in the final very likely because it'll mean England don't top their group, which is, it's not impossible, but it is probably quite unlikely. That brings us, I guess, to the end of the analysis, guys. I guess bottom line, Southern Hemisphere or Northern Hemisphere, Couch, you don't have to give me a team name, South or North. Going to win. I'm not even going to ask Judge. I know the answer.
Brent, I still think it's New Zealand against the Northern Hemisphere. I think it's all well and good being great, optimistic about the Boks. I love how they're playing, but I think they're going to come up short in the semi-final or final. to me, the Northern Hemisphere, I've got a few more runners. So just out of that, thinking that I've got probably 3 runners versus 1 runner, I'm going to have to say Northern Hemisphere.
Well, when I see guys like Chris saying that a dark horse like France, and Nicho also suggesting that the 35-1 is a great price on France, and my love for French rugby, you can see where I'm heading now.
Don't say it.
The guys are very much roping me in at the moment. Judge, on the off chance that South Africa don't win the World Cup, who do you think's the danger? Who will run second to the box?
So I'm definitely getting caught up in this World Cup fever. And like when we first started chatting, I was like, last year when Rassie came aboard, I just said, there's no ways that we realistically can look at the World Cup. And I'm getting roped in, and it's really difficult not to get this World Cup fever. But the truth is if we don't win the World Cup, it's not the end of the world. We've just taken such a massive trajectory of building and growing and playing that we almost feel like if we carry on with that, we're going to go and win and we're going to be world beaters. But the truth is we haven't been put under a lot of pressure in a knockout tournament as of yet. We've had a couple of key games against the All Blacks, but we haven't played in a World Cup final. A lot of the guys are new at the World Cup, so it's quite difficult. What if it wasn't South Africa? The All Blacks are still going to come good. They're working through a few things. Squire probably will come back into the mix. I'm almost certain of that. So he'll cover blindside, so they'll be pretty sorted there. I'm just interested to see what they do at lock. I think they're pretty handy. I think their halfbacks are very good. I still think Beauden Barrett's their best fly-off. Manga's in great form, but he's kind of flaked a little bit now, so he will come in a little bit and build up. Beauden will start at 10, but then who's going to kick for them? So Barrett will kick, so he's got to sort that out, and I think that might be the only swing vote. I think England are currently looking pretty good, even though they've been up and down the last few years. Eddie Jones has been talking hard about how they obviously want to focus and win the World Cup, and I'd love France to do well. I think they've got some flash players, and when you look at the likes of Damien Penaud and Ntamaki will be on the bench, and Dupont, who's going to set the tournaments on fire. So, we're in a good shot. I think England, New Zealand, I think Wales will be in with a shot, and you can't write the Aussies off.
Yeah, that's it. We haven't chatted much about Australia, but you're quite right. Sort of chat quickly, Shane, and there's been a couple of answers in the live chat. He's asking who's going to be the top point scorer. I don't necessarily want to discuss that now because we don't have time on today's show, but Kat, you and I were discussing earlier in the day, we must actually do a show where we look at the top try scorers and the top point scorers. So Shane, stay tuned. We'll definitely have a look at those. And I know that some of the bookies are priced up. We'll probably throw in the odds there just out of interest. But it's very interesting.
I think, Brent, can I just quickly, Sean, I think the nice thing that we'd like to know from a punting perspective is like I've heard a big argument about is a left winger more likely to score than a right winger? And the other thing is, you look to go for someone who's probably going to be playing against the weaker teams to rack up 5 tries and maybe come off the bench a few times. And maybe next week we touch on a few tips where we ask you like kind of betting related things and you answer it from a non-betting analyst perspective, and we use that info.
That is brilliant. I'm gonna come on with a disguise so I can't be hunted down afterwards, but I'll give you my honest opinion.
Excellent, guys. Thanks very much. It's been a great show. Enjoyed talking about the Northern Hemisphere side. Thanks. We had great participation in the live chat, so thanks to all of you guys as well. It's been a top class here. We'll announce what next week's topic will be. Of course, we will have the handicap rugby chat that matters on Thursday night. We'll be looking at the Currie Cup semi-finals. The 2 games, the home teams are favourites there, but I know a lot of punters think the away teams, the Sharks and the Griquas, have got a good chance. It does look, Sean, as though the dream trip to Kimberley is off, and maybe it would have been a nightmare trip to Kimberley, but it doesn't look like we're going to Tafellager, hey?
Oh, it's still in with the shots.
Still in with a shot. Just need both. Just need both away teams.
Yeah, so they must go for it. And who's the other away team? The Sharks.
Yeah, the Sharks, and I like the Sharks. I'm really impressed. I tell you,
Sharks can roll the Lions. Who are the Sharks playing? I'm sorry.
Sharks are playing the Free State in Bloem, and the Lions are hosting the Griquas.
So Cheetahs A versus the Cheetahs B. Cool. So the Sharks will win, and then the Griquas could roll the Lions at Ellis Park. It's a tough one, but I tell you they could do it. And then a home final. Then we're going to Griquas and to Kimberley, and I think it might be a little bit chilly there.
Excellent. Sean, thanks very much. Couch, thank you for joining us. Thanks to all in the live chat. If you are new to this program, please do go down below and hit the subscribe button. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next week.